Hi, I'm Lydia with Revelation Real Estate, and today in Solving Life's Next Chapter, we have two folks here, and we've got Lisa with Home Care Services and Allison with Legacy Home Care. Thank you for coming, ladies.
Well, thank you
Thanks
for having us.
So today we're talking about there's no place like home, and of course, you both work in home health care and placement. And so, let's start with you, Lisa. Let's talk about what is the difference between home health care and non-medical in-home caregiving.
Excellent.
That's
Yes.
very confusing.
Yes.
It is, and thank you so much for asking that. So, home health care primarily deals with physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech, and an RN coming to the home. So someone becomes discharged, right away that's all set up, well, particularly the RN,
Right.
and then if it's deemed that that person needs physical therapy, then that is set up. So they're in the home for maybe 45 minutes or whatever that visit is
Right.
for a allotted amount of time that Medicare does pay for.
Okay.
So the big differential here is that home care is completely non-medical, ordinarily private pay. Sometimes long-term care insurance does cover that.
Okay.
I know there are some companies in the works of providing 40 hours a year, but that's down the road. So right now it's primarily private. Private pay.
Okay.
And it's non-medical. It's activities of daily living. If someone is,
So when you say
struggling with
that, activities of daily living, what does that encompass right there?
So that would be someone, say, personal care, just taking a shower safely by themselves.
Okay.
And, they may need, some assistance there. Providing meals, light housekeeping, running errands, grocery shopping, pet care, things like that. So.
Okay, gotcha. And then what are the benefits of having a caregiver especially for the families? So explain to us why that's so important.
Well, I feel it's very important because the family members then can actually be family members and not be that caretaker.
Caregiver.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Now, in some circumstances, yes, the family member is the caregiver. We could give them respite as well. But back to your first question, we can come in and do the chores throughout the week, and then the family member can actually be the daughter and the son and the grandkids having fun and not doing laundry and, prepping meals for the week.
Or bathing them or whatever they have
Maybe
to.
uncomfortable.
Right.
Situation.
And I think people don't realize that because a lot of family members think, oh, I can take care of mom or I can take care of dad. But they don't realize. We had Ann Ross here with Mobile Dentistries, and she was explaining, with especially with dementia patients, you have to actually brush their teeth because they don't remember to brush their teeth in the morning. I mean, it's not just taking care of them. I mean, it's a lot of detailed taking
It's
care
anything you or I would do
to
on
ourselves,
a daily basis,
but for someone else.
but for someone else.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and you don't think about that,
Yeah,
and
it's a
it
lot.
it's
Yes.
crazy. So, what might be a typical schedule look like for a family member who's maybe considering home health care?
Commonly, it's started off with, let's say, maybe a 4, a 6, or an 8-hour shift 3 times a week, something like that. However, we're a little bit different because we can actually start off with 4 hours once a week, once a month, something like that, for a family to become more proactive in that idea of someone coming into their home and not taking away the independence immediately. More of a I'm here to be your assistant kind of thing.
Yes.
Right. So it may be something like just coming in and helping prep meals for the month, and starting out that way, and then moving into more of the hygiene, giving them the baths or the shower, or making sure that they're not falling in the shower or whatever the situation is. Gotcha. Okay. So when folks are getting into home or getting home health care, what are some of the reasons why someone would want a home health care? It's funny because we just talked about how, and a lot of the shows that we do here talk about how people don't realize that they need services until it's almost too late, and then they're kind of running around trying to find the services that they need. So give us that kind of a scenario on what to look for our patients or family members?
So I'd say, even as it might not seem like it's such a big deal, but personal care. You know, you go to pick mom up for lunch and you notice her hair might be disheveled or no makeup this time or different mix and match outfits, just little things like that, because it was too difficult to get down to a bottom drawer or pick out this type of shoe or something like that.
Right.
And then just the hygiene, part of it. That would be one clue right there. Preparing meals,
Maybe they're not eating as well as
Correct.
they used to because they can't, either they can't prepare them or they can't get to the store to go
Right.
get the ingredients.
Or they don't realize they need to eat. So if it's someone that has dementia, they have forgotten that they actually need to eat. And so
Right.
if there's nobody to help remind them and put a nice presented plate in front of them, they're going to let that go.
And they probably haven't even been diagnosed yet. So
Yeah.
they don't even
Right.
know that there's some sort of
Right.
dementia there at all. So
Right, right.
okay, that makes sense. So so when someone's gotten to the point of, say you're now in the home with them and you're seeing that either the decline or whatever, maybe they need more services, what are some of the signs, or when would someone go from home care to maybe where it needs to go into maybe more of assisted living or independent living or memory care? How do families decipher those types of when it's time to move on?
And that might be kind of my area here. So I also work with Legacy Home Care, and maybe before we go forward, Lisa, if you would want to talk about home care resources and all of the companies that are associated.
Explain to us, because you guys have a unique,
Yes,
your
we
programs
do.
are unique
We
to
do.
you.
Right. So we actually do have approximately 275 caregivers working at a given time for us.
Right.
Wow.
Because of the fact that we do have centrally located home care resources.
Okay.
In the East Valley, then we have Legacy Home Care. And then also in the West Valley, we have Blessings for Seniors.
Okay.
And Hyde Park in North Scottsdale. So we do cover the entire valley.
And all of those are home health care companies, correct?
Home care.
Non-medical,
Non-medical.
in-home care.
Okay.
So we
I'm
want to
still-
differentiate home
okay.
health from,
Yeah, okay. So all of those are non-medical
Yes,
home health.
right.
So all of those companies can come and do the showering and the meals and
Exactly.
the preps,
Yeah,
things like that.
And
Yes.
also, not even as far as just companionship and then moving into some of the activities of daily living, but also more of the complex cases. We work with, Barrows Neurological Institute quite a lot. We're on the Innovative Care Partners with all the Honor Healths, which there's only 6 agencies on that. And then also with
ALS
the ALS Foundation, there's 3 agencies on there, that they highly recommend, and we've been on that for quite some time as well. So we have been operating in the Valley locally for about 21 years.
Okay.
Locally
okay.
operated. So.
And so all of these companies are owned by the same.
Yes.
They're all owned and individually under one company.
One management.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then, so tell us. So services are the same East Side, West Side, and North Side as well. Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so tell us then now, how does it work once someone's had your services and now they're debating on whether to move on for either more services and or moving to the next phase, which I
Right.
think would be you, Allison,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
Because you
So-
are also, you work for Legacy, but you're
do.
also a placement agent.
I am.
So that is a whole nother ball game.
It is.
So
It
tell us what I meet with a lot of clients that
Sure.
I ask them, are you working with a placement agent? A lot of people do not know what a placement agent actually is.
It sounds very scary.
It does. So tell us what does a placement agent do?
So a placement agent or a placement specialist is somebody like myself that will come alongside a senior or their families and help them find either a care home or an assisted living community. And we're talking, could be independent living, assisted living, memory care, could be a skilled nursing facility.
Ah.
There are so many variables here. And so my job is to come alongside and take away some of this overwhelming stress that is involved.
Right.
There are literally hundreds out there.
Right.
And how does an individual know which ones are appropriate?
Right.
Which ones can I feel safe that my mother or father or my relative is in?
Right.
So we do the footwork based on doing an assessment with the family, with the individual, finding out exactly what their needs are, what their budget is, what location they want to be in, and then I go about and do my research and am able to present them with several options, which we can then go tour, and then they can make an educated decision.
Right. And I think, too, just in my experience, it's funny because when someone's looking at moving into an assisted or independent or memory care, the families always think, oh, well, I can go visit them and I can see which ones I like. But they don't realize that you placement agents, actually, you look at the state records to find out, what they because some of these places specialize in certain things. Some in behavioral situations, some do better in memory, some are better at independent. And so there's so many new ones out in the valley, and people don't realize that you're not just putting mom in an apartment and with a decent restaurant or activities. It's a whole,
it has to fit the person.
Yeah.
So it's unique to each family. And, going in, I've been on the side of looking, and I know how overwhelming it is. And I had help at the time, and so I'm very appreciative of that. And that's one of the reasons that I want to help people because, you reach a stress level. Usually at that point in time, there's a crisis going on, or there's just, like you said, family is so busy and they think they can go look, but they really don't have the time. And again, so many variables that they don't realize. And getting back to the licensing, that also is going to indicate whether or not that home is, it has a good record or not in taking care of their residents.
Yeah.
So that's really important too, because, I don't recommend every care home or community because of that.
Right.
So.
And I think people don't realize they get checked on a yearly basis.
They do.
And they have like a report card that's given to them that they're supposed to give to families if the family asks for it. But if the family doesn't know to ask for it, then they, and someone could easily just walk in somewhere and it can look good that day.
Absolutely.
But then every other day after that, it might not look so nice.
Right. A lot of these places are gorgeous. I mean, I often say, sign me up, because they're so nice.
We have a lot of good ones.
And they are nice, and they do have good care. But the thing to remember is that just because someplace is beautiful doesn't mean that they necessarily have the trained staff for whatever that individual's needs are.
Right.
Working with ALS, that's a big one that we work with. And not everyone is able to work with the progression of that disease.
Right.
So I know questions to ask that maybe the family wouldn't know.
Right. And I think that's so important because families they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
They think, there's a new facility a block or two down the way, and even though that might be convenient for them to walk to it, maybe the one that's a mile or 2 or 3 down the road is going to be a better service.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I always try to encourage them to use a placement agent for that reason because you don't want to ever try to move someone more than once because
it's traumatic.
It's traumatic.
Yes.
It's expensive.
Yes.
It's hard for someone moving in there because it takes them a while to mesh with the community and get a new routine in, and but once they're there and they have that routine and they find friends, it can totally change your life, and they can be they can be super better than they were at home being alone.
Right. And so the title of our podcast is "There's No Place Like Home," which is true.
Right.
Because on the caregiving side, who doesn't want to stay at home for the rest of their lives?
Right.
So our caregivers can go in and make that happen. But if there does come a time, then maybe the care home, which can actually provide them with a more specific need or the community, that can be their new home as well.
Right.
So there's no place like home.
Yep.
It needs to be home wherever they are.
Right.
And
exactly.
A lot of times too, our caregivers may follow that individual right to that
Yes, they-
independent living
Yes,
or
and
assisted
that can
living.
happen.
That's a good point.
Because there's
Right.
not enough,
Right.
the assisted living, another misconception, right? Oh, it's assisted living. Someone's
Right.
there for me,
all the
24/7.
time.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and
Not
sometimes
so, of
they're
course.
not.
Right,
Yes,
right.
Yeah,
So we can
Right.
still help.
and that is true. And I think that's a good point you bring up, because I think people that put their family members in assisted living don't realize that maybe they still need a little bit of help on the
Right.
side here
Right.
and there. And it's always good to have a second set of eyes. They may go in on a weekend when they're off of work, but you guys can go in during the week when they aren't,
Right.
when they don't have the
Right.
time to go in and
Right.
see what's going on with mom
Right.
or dad or
Right.
what have you. So, as a placement agent, I know this is probably very a good question for a lot of families. They want to know what those costs are to hire someone like you to
course.
place their loved one. So, tell us how you guys get paid.
Okay, well, the beauty of it is that the service is free. So for the family, there is no cost for me to do what I do. I'm always very upfront with our families as to how we do get paid. So a placement agency has developed relationships with directors of communities, owners of care homes. For me, if I go out and I'm touring and I'm getting to know, a particular home or community, if it's someplace I would put my parents, then I will hand them a referral fee contract from Adult Care Connection.
Okay.
So down the line, if I refer an individual to them, they have an agreed upon percentage that they would pay Adult Care Connection for us helping them to get residents.
Right.
And care homes don't have marketing directors.
Right.
So this is very helpful for them.
Right.
And even with the communities, they do, but they also need that outside help. So,
Right.
I feel so good about saying, you know what, don't worry, this is not going to cost you anything.
Right. Right. So you do get paid by the community or the care home.
Right.
That kind of brings me to another question too. Give us a scenario of when do you place someone in a larger community?
Oh, that's a good question.
Versus like a home care.
Very good.
So that's
Okay.
that's probably my biggest. That I even have concerns and questions
Sure.
about that as
Sure.
to when is it best for that person to go into a bigger community versus a group home?
Yeah, I like that question because it's one of the first things that always comes to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm doing the assessment, when I'm observing the person, when I'm listening to what the family is telling me, maybe some of their just their patterns. Or for a care home, I like them because they are very closely supervised.
Right.
So if I have an individual that I know is a fall risk,
Okay.
I want somebody that's going to be there all the time.
Right.
If I have somebody that needs to be fed
Right.
because they're not able to feed themselves,
Right.
I want to make sure that they have that coverage right there.
Right.
And also during the night, that caregiver is right there.
Right.
Not all care homes have awake staff, but even if they are asleep at night, they make rounds or they've got the call buttons,
Okay.
and they're just right there.
Okay. So
So
they're actually living in the home.
They're
with the,
living in
right.
the home with them. So no caregiver goes home at night. I
Right.
mean, there's always somebody there.
Okay.
And then the other thing about assisted, I mean, they're great too. It just depends. If somebody, a lot of times people will start out independent.
Right.
Because they just maybe want a smaller place. They want
Right.
to downsize, but they still are active and want to have
Right.
the
And maybe
activities.
they don't have maybe they don't need the resources that a
Right.
assisted living would
Right,
have.
but then there are a lot of aging in place communities where when they do need that assistance, then they can have
It's
it.
there. Yeah.
Right, and so for assisted living in the larger community, I feel like if it's someone who is confused, someone that has a very specific need that requires real eyes and hands-on, I am probably going to steer towards a care home.
Right.
Because they can get lost in
Right.
an assisted living.
Yep.
So it just really depends on the individual.
On the individual.
Yeah, and then memory care, of course, is very specified to those who have advanced Alzheimer's, that type of thing, where they
Right.
know how to work with an individual who is, maybe even wandering,
Right.
or just completely kind of has just forgotten everything.
Right.
But they can bring them back. There's ways to bring them back to memories that they've had and that kind of thing. So
what I have noticed, even my own last few clients that I've helped sell their home that have had to move into memory care, it's amazing because we are lucky in Arizona. We have a lot of resources here that maybe a lot of other states don't have for their seniors. But what I have noticed with my specifically my memory care patient or folks that I'm helping sell their home, I have discovered that they even memory care communities have different resources and levels and care for that person. I recently had a couple, the gentleman had to move into an assisted living, and instead of sending his wife to the memory care at that assisted living, they ended up having to send her to a specific behavioral memory care, which they all don't have that. So that comes to another good reason to have
a
that
placement person.
To have the placement person, to have that someone who knows what to look for with some of those behaviors.
I try to keep couples together, and they may have very different needs. So again, I can contact and I could talk to the directors and find out, can we make this happen? Husband is okay in an assisted, but wife is not. How are we going to keep them together? And so that's the goal. And number one always, and for you too, I'm sure, is safety. It all boils down to safety.
Right. So, and would you say that falls are probably your biggest, the biggest concerns when folks are at home? Is really fall more of the problem than anything else?
It's a big one.
Yeah, it is a big one, but a lot of times it's not necessarily when we are there, and again, it falls into budget and all of those encompassing, the care. Many times it's the weekend when we're not there, and the family members there, or somebody's doing something in the kitchen, and mom or dad.
And they're not really watching them. Because sometimes they you can't have 24-hour eyes on them. So it's probably trying to teach them how to get to a point where they can get them in and out of bed or in and out of a chair without having those fall problems.
Well, and also we have an incredible social worker who goes out as well and does the assessments, and a lot of times too, you'd be surprised, maybe you would not be surprised, but the kind of houses you go into and the safety measures that have not been taken for years and years and years, and even just with that can alleviate the times when we're not there. At least it's safer when we're not there at some point.
I see the same thing, and it's funny because when we have babies at home, we're all careful about plugging holes and baby-proofing everything, but we don't think about that for the seniors. We don't
senior-proof.
We don't senior-proof the houses.
This is true.
So and I think that's probably a big, so just educating the families on the right way and what to do and what's better for them.
Yeah, removing the area rugs, making sure the bathrooms have the bars that they need,
and the resources that we have as well to send people out to do some of those tasks.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about us is we have so many resources. Like you, Lydia, you're one of them. And so I mean, it feels so good to know that I have somebody that I can without a doubt say they can, this is going to be a great person for you to talk to.
I feel the same way, and that's kind of what started the whole podcast was because sometimes, especially at crisis situations, sometimes you and I are the first ones that get those calls, and the family has no clue the amount of resources that are out here for their loved ones, and a lot of times like for instance, we have Savior Hospice and Palliative Care. A lot of people don't know that those services are available and are paid for by Medicare. And those are things that's why this podcast was so important, was to get the information to the families, to let them know there are services for you and you don't have to be alone. And a lot of times it's the families that need more of the caregivers are there for the patient or the resident.
Right.
But a lot of times those families need that reassurance that they're doing it correctly, or maybe they need that respite care, where respite, for those who don't know, are those that you can take a loved one or have a caregiver in the home for 24 hours so that you could go on that trip with your daughter.
Right, or even just to the dentist.
Or just to the dentist.
Out for a meal or something to refresh yourself.
Yeah, because people they want to help their loved one, but they don't realize that they need that.
Yeah.
Yes.
They need those resources just as much as their loved ones do.
Exactly, and that kind of goes back with hospice. We partner with hospice. We partner with home health.
Yes.
So it takes a village to
Yes.
take care of a person.
Yeah.
So having the resources that all fit together can help, that, like you said, the family tremendously, because they are going through a lot.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the person who's going through it doesn't realize what's going on.
How stressed they are.
Exactly.
Yeah, they really don't.
So it really is for the family, as much as the client.
And it's funny because even and I know you have too, when we've had our family members go through this, even though we have all these resources, we still kind of panic.
Try to do it.
Like,
it's like, what do I do?
I know.
So we have to call each other and say, remember.
Don't forget, we have this type of business that can help you out. You're like,
true.
oh, yeah.
So what it basically boils down to, we're all human, regardless of what we do. And we just need to remember, like you said, there are the resources out there.
Yeah.
And reach out.
You're not alone. Reach
Be
out.
proactive.
Yes.
That's just the biggest.
I would say
key
that's
right
probably
there.
the biggest thing,
Be
because
proactive.
usually it's in a crisis situation that
Right.
people are trying to find
Right.
resources.
Yes.
And if they can find them before the crisis hits,
yes.
then when the crisis does hit,
Yes.
you already have the list of
Right.
Yeah.
these are our resources that are for this situation. Or if you don't have that resource, you could call one of those folks and say, what do you have that could help me with this? Or,
Right.
And it's an educated choice. It's not just a random, oh my gosh.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Right.
Yeah.
You've done your research
Right.
and you're confident,
Right.
which would make you more at ease as well. And then move
Right.
on to the next
Right.
issue,
Yeah.
I think
Well,
so.
I really appreciate you both coming in,
we
talking about
appreciate you
trying to
having us.
keep your families at home as long as possible, and then if not, then there are resources
Yes.
for them as
Yep.
well.
Yes.
So I really appreciate it. I would love to have you both come back and give us more updates and more resources later on next year. So
I'd be happy to.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So again, if someone needs to get a hold of you,
Yes.
what is the best number to reach do we call the resource side, or do we call, what's the better way to do it?
Actually, we all work together. So if
Okay.
a call comes into Home Care Resources and this
Right.
individual lives in Gilbert,
Yep.
then we
You'll
just
go to
transfer
Legacy.
the
Okay.
line over.
And
They
if
don't have to
someone-
hang up and call someone else.
Okay, good.
We just transfer
and then
that,
if you have someone in Goodyear or North Scottsdale, you'll facilitate
Right.
sending
Same
them
thing.
to there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay, perfect. So
Yes.
what is the phone number for the resource? Do you have it?
Well, you know what? I will tell you what Legacy Home Care's phone number is,
Okay.
because I use that actually for everything. So it's 480-777-0070.
Okay. And they can call you. You can facilitate getting them wherever they
Yes,
need to at
and
that point.
Adult Care Connection actually has their phone number and a separate phone number, but I use this one because I work out of the Mesa office.
Right.
So yes, if you call that number, it will go to whatever part of the valley
and
needs
we'll
to have it.
And we'll have the links on the
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll put the links on there too for
Right.
people to just be
Right.
able to. So thank you so much
thank
for
you.
coming.
Thanks for having
I've
us.
really enjoyed it, and I've
Yes.
learned a lot. So
Good.
it's there's a lot of resources out there, but there's also a lot of
There's a lot of mystery.
there is, and
Yes.
it's hard to know what to do first.
It
and
is.
so when you have someone that can assess that family member and say,
Yes.
okay, these are their symptoms, and this is what I think. Here's kind of a game plan to go
Right.
through forward.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I think that's
Right.
great. Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Fantastic. Thank
and
you.
thanks for coming on to the podcast show, and we will see you next week.